and welcome to The Clear Voice, brought to you by Clear Career Professionals. I'm your host, James Groom. With us today is Clear's president, Michael Bays. Welcome back to the show, Michael.
Thanks for having me, James. It's been a really great wrap up to the Thanksgiving holiday, and we're excited to have our guest on this morning to talk about the assistant chief of police position down in Liberty. This is one of these positions that is close to my heart. We've worked with that community on several different projects, and I just continue to be impressed by the folks who are serving down there, the progress that is happening. The entire region is growing rapidly, and I'm excited to visit with their chief about this position.
You want to introduce our guest?
Yeah, absolutely. Chief Ashe is joining us today, and he has been with Liberty. Chief, has it been almost a year?
Well, I started as interim in February and then full-time in April.
Good deal. Chief Ashe has a very distinguished career, and I'll let him talk a little bit about that. And then, Chief, if you can, a little bit about how you ended up being the chief in Liberty.
Well, that is a long and complicated story. So I spent majority of my career in Temple, 27 years in Temple after being in the military, and then a few years in Woodway, Texas. I retired in 2017 from Temple and took a chief's job in Salado. And that was one of those deals where I got a phone call from the people I knew down there. Hey, would you come be chief? And I was like, oh, I don't know, But then I sat down and talked to my chief there in Temple, and he said, you really should consider doing it. He said, you never know what doors will open up. So I went to Salado for about a year and a half, and then Kennedy for 5 years. And then we tried to move down to the Galveston area. So I took a position in Morgan's Point for about a year and wasn't going as well. So I ended up retiring from there. I was sitting at home trying to find something to do because my wife told me I had to work. She said, you can retire, but you can't be unemployed. So woke up one morning and I realized, hey, wait a minute. I know a guy who does interim chief work. So I called Michael, or I emailed him and said, hey, I'm looking for an interim chief job. If you have somebody. And he got back to me like a couple hours later saying, hey, I need somebody in Liberty. Can you go down there? And I'm like, that's an hour away. Heck yeah, I can be there. I think their chief retired real suddenly. So I came down to do interim. I was here for a couple months interim, and I just kind of worked out with the city, just asked if I could just stay on. And so we've been doing a lot of work here, and I knew I had a long way to go to get where I need to be. It was easier for me just to end up staying. But the city's been great. They've been wonderful here to keep me on, and I really appreciate everything that they've done for me and allow me to do this. And Michael has been really helpful. So, yeah, it's been quite the journey to get here, about 40 years worth total, but been a long road.
Yeah. Well, and Chief, as I talked about in our intro, we had the honor of working with the city to hire their city manager, which, the city was able to hire a really great leader in Brian Kendrick. And, he came down there. And your interim assignment is one of my favorite stories because we don't talk about it too much, but we got onto it on one of our more recent podcasts. But I was prayerful that they would get a really good chief. And it just so happened the chief retired down in Liberty. And, I was praying right around that same day that you sent me an email. And so I really feel like it was meant to be that they have a leader like yourself joining the group down there to reshape an organization and move it forward. So really excited about your story. And, I also have always been really impressed with those folks who have came out of the Temple Police Department. And I've had an opportunity to work with several police leaders from the city of Temple. We have a lot of mutual friends from there. It seems like that was a really great place that developed their folks and really focused on leadership. And a number of people from Temple have done well in executive roles.
Yeah, several of them are chiefs now, city managers. Brad Hunt, I know you worked with him. He's now city manager.
Chief, can you tell us a little bit about the department itself, how many staff you have, what services you guys provide to Liberty, and what you anticipate the PD will look like in the next 3 to 5 years?
Sure. So right now we are set for 22 cops, which includes 4 SROs. We have 4 campuses in Liberty. The city itself is about 9,000 people. We also have our own dispatch center. We have records. We do have CID as well. I have 3 CID officers. So we have our records, dispatch, evidence. So we do have civilian staff as well. So total staff is, I think, 32 when we're fully staffed. We provide all the services. We also dispatch for our FD and our EMS as well. That all comes out of this building. Supposed to have 6 dispatchers and a supervisor.
So we're doing the recruitment for the assistant chief of police at Liberty. That's a key role for your department. What will the duties be for this position when they're hired on?
Right. So we started looking at having to promote up somebody to cover our administrative side. We lost a lieutenant due to some unforeseen circumstances. And then when we got talking to the city manager and the mayor, we got talking about maybe this is our opportunity to create the future for Liberty PD. So this position will be, starting off, will be our admin side. They'll be in charge of investigations, dispatch, records, evidence, internal affairs, accreditation, and training. So they'll have quite a portfolio, but they'll also be the number two. And our goal is to work with that person, to work with me and train them. So then in a few years, when I finally can go just sit on the beach, this person can seamlessly step into the role. And so the city is really interested in finding, I was kind of a Band-Aid and a bridge, but they're looking for their future. And so we're going to take this opportunity to build that, to find that person they can spend 4 or 5 years with me, and then I'll be gone, and then they can lead the department. What I'm really needing, like I said, I would really like to find somebody with experience in investigations, particularly narcotics and vice is kind of a weakness for us here. I'd like to have some help with that. I've done that work, but Chief doesn't do that work anymore, So also somebody familiar with accreditation and training. Somebody with that kind of experience is what we're kind of looking for. And we can, I don't mind training them, if they don't have this or that part, if we find the right person, I definitely don't mind training them up to get them to where they need to be.
And Michael may know more about this, but this sounds like a really great opportunity for some of these lieutenants and, captains in some other cities. I think there's so much talent and so many great leaders out there in the law enforcement world, and they're always trying to figure out how to get to that next step. And this sounds like a great bridge if somebody's interested in being a chief and maybe doesn't have that assistant chief experience yet, come in probably from a lieutenant position with having a lot of those things under their belt and kind of just be raised up in Liberty with you.
Yeah, well, I'll call out all of my leadership command college folks that have came through as I've been teaching up there the last 10 years or so. But yeah, I think it's a great opportunity to get into a community that has some reasonable growth. I mean, they're not dropping 3,000 houses a year, but they do have houses coming in. I think they have a city council and a city manager, and now under Rick, a chief of police who wants to be innovative and really move the department, forward into a very positive direction. I was impressed. Now, this is one of the agencies where I've had an opportunity to go on a ride along with a couple of their folks and really see, what the community looks like as far as operational standpoint and having officers respond to calls. I think Rick has taken on an area where he can provide them better equipment. Rick, you probably have started getting MBTs in the cars and some of the technology that's really going to impact the ability of the officers to provide a higher level of service to your community. When I was out there riding along, I know that there was some lack of technology under the previous administration. And if you can talk a little bit about that, I think that would help folks understand where you're at.
Yes. When I came in, one of the things that was on my list that y'all gave me was technology, and MDTs was definitely one of them. The officers weren't using MDTs. We reached out to our vendor and started making that work. I want to say we started in maybe March or something. We just fully got the MDTs implemented a month or two ago. The ticket writers are still in the process. So this is a long process to get this set up, but we hope that the ticket writers will be done this month, and then we'll be fully integrated with the MDT system. We've also upgraded our 911 system. Flock is starting. We've got that contract now. So we have one in place now, waiting on TxDOT for the rest of them. But we'll have 9 of those in place here, hopefully soon, to have that technology as well. We've upgraded to start using some different softwares and those kind of things. But for some reason, I'm not really sure why, there was a resistance to some of the newer technologies. Not necessarily from the council. They've been great. And like you said, Mr. Kendrick has been wonderful. It's really more about, what do you need, Chief? And then what can we afford? And there's some been back and forth, like always is on a budget process. Like I said, council has been great. City managers have been great. And they've been very supportive. They really want to see us become a modern police department. And so, it's been wonderful.
The technology piece is really important. It kind of supplements your police force. And I would guess if the person listening that is thinking about applying has some sort of experience with the technology side of law enforcement, that'd probably be helpful.
As far as implementing these things, I've had to learn as we go. We've had, I can't tell you how many meetings I've had about MDTs and, implementations and stuff like that. But it was a good project to work through. Flock was the same way. I don't know if you've ever worked with Flock. Working through that, we finally just got through all that process through TCIC and all that. So now we're just waiting on TxDOT to give us the approval so they can get it going. But that was quite the learning curve too.
The city is wanting to be innovative, and that's good that you're implementing those things. While you're talking about hiring this second in command, what leadership traits and character qualities do you think would be a great asset for you in Liberty?
Right. So, do you want to clone them yourself? Well, not necessarily, but what I always do tell my supervisors, there's things I expect of them, right? Be professional. You're courteous. You treat your employees with respect, right? Even when they're wrong and even when you have to discipline them, we still treat them with respect, right? We treat all your citizens with respect. Even when they're trash talking us on Facebook or whatever, we still have to take that high ground. I'm looking for somebody who, ideally, somebody who's forward thinking, right? I have a couple of really good supervisors who think ahead. What challenges are we going to see in the future? They're seeing things that I might not even think of that are going to be a problem in the future. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to find, somebody that's more technologically astute than me, who can kind of see where this is going in the future and what trends we're going to see out there. Like I said, I don't want to clone, somebody that can get along well. I'm one of those people that like working with the city council or the other city people. I believe in building relationships, and with the other agencies around us, that's been a big focus since I've been here, is making sure that I reach out and build those relationships. It's actually been very helpful because there's been a couple instances where I needed the help, and much easier to call somebody that I have a relationship with. That'll be important too. Somebody who can work with other units, maybe task forces, those kind of things.
Some of the applicants may take a little pause when they're thinking about taking over dispatch. That may not be something that they've done before. You talk about a little bit of why dispatch is so important and maybe what candidates should know coming in, especially if they don't have any experience over that.
Sure. I'd never actually supervised dispatch before either. One of the changes I did make when I got here was I created a dispatch supervisor. Our senior dispatcher, she's been here, I want to say 7 or 8 years, something like that. But she's now our dispatch supervisor. She's become really well-versed in all the TCIC issues and dealing with the state and all those kind of things. This person coming in would just basically be supervising the supervisor. So they don't really have to know everything about dispatch. I have somebody for that. What they need to provide is leadership, right? And making sure that they have what they need, listening to that supervisor and making sure that she has what she needs and that she's doing the right thing. But I do have a subject matter expert over there. So they don't really have to know all that. They just need to be able to supervise.
You're not throwing them in the sharks out there. They've got plenty of support.
Right. Yeah.
Training is an important part in this role. What do you envision as far as Liberty's training goals, and what are you guys going to be trying to accomplish going forward when you hire this position?
Right. So we are a training provider, which is, again, it's something new for me to deal with a little bit, but it's been a weakness for us for a while that we're a training provider, but we're not really providing training. We do internal stuff, but not out. So what I'd like to see going forward is hosting more classes. We have several good instructors in-house, bringing in instructors from outside and hosting classes here. If we're a training provider, you really need to be providing training. On paper, we have it. We have our board and that kind of thing, but it is a weakness. And so I would like to see us do a lot more hosting training and that kind of stuff here.
Sounds like a place for some easy wins to get in and take a program that's kind of got the bare bones already in place and just building it out.
Right. And like I said, the structure is here. We already have our provider license. So now you just have to build like I said, you've already got the base to it. We just need to build the train on top of it.
And accreditation, you guys are accredited with TPCA. And can you tell us a little bit about that? How long has that been going on? And when's your next review? And how important is that process and that accreditation for you guys?
So originally, Liberty was accredited, I want to say it was 2002. 2012, I believe it was the first time. So they've been through a couple of reaccreditations. It's kind of interesting when Michael asked me about Liberty. I said, well, I know Liberty because I was up there, last year doing their reaccreditation, right? So I'm an assessor for the accreditation program. I'd actually been here the last time they did theirs. So we did it in 24. So we'll be due again early of 28 for our reaccred. So right now, myself and my assistant, we make sure that we do all the yearly requirements for TPCA. So that's all being kept up. But come 2027, we're going to have to get in and redo all of our files again for preparing for 2028. 2027 will be a lot more work for this person on that. But we do have all the basics in place and the requirements are done. Like, again, it's not starting from scratch. It's just going back and building the folders. I don't know if you know, but TPCA is working on our accreditation program. We're trying to go more digital. And so I'm not really sure how that's going to work. I'm actually doing an accreditation coming up here at the end of January. So I'll kind of see how the new process is working. Like you said, the bones is there, the program is there. They just need to fill it out.
Didn't have that experience. It sounds like you get a whole year to kind of get your feet under you before the major work starts. And it sounds like you're an expert to help them along the process if they don't have that experience as well.
Yeah, we'll be fine. It's just a learning curve,
And from your perspective, what makes Liberty a unique place to work in law enforcement, and how would you describe the culture of the department?
Liberty County, it's not exactly a small county, but it's not real large either. It's kind of in between. So the city of Liberty is, like I said, about 9,000 people. It's mainly residential. We don't have manufacturing or, any of that kind of thing here. We do have businesses, but it's, restaurant stores, those kind of things. Most people here working around us, they go other places to work, Beaumont and Houston and, that kind of stuff. We are building some, like Michael said, we do have some new subdivisions coming in out near the sheriff's office. We have a new subdivision coming in. There is also a plan in the works that we're talking the other day with some people that they want to build a shipping port here, not a full one, but like for certain materials, they'll bring in by barge. So we sit right on the Trinity River. The Trinity River empties out into the Galveston Bay. So you can literally barge your way up, into the Trinity River. If they get that set up, that will bring in a lot of new business here, just in some warehouses and, that kind of work there. That's about a 5-year project. So we'll see. But that's the future.
Yeah, no, I was going to talk a little bit more about that. Having worked on that city manager recruitment and met with all the mayor and council members, I'm really excited about the shallow water port that is potentially going to be coming into Liberty in the future. They have an amazing industrial park that will really bring in those labor-intensive kind of businesses where people can find good-paying jobs. I think there's some really special things about Liberty that I didn't want to miss there. When I was there, they have an amazing golf course that is well kept and maintained by the city, and probably one of the best golf courses in the region down there. I know people like to go play on that. They have an airport that is in city limits that are trying to really use that to infuse their economic development going on. They have a really rare building, which is a replica of the governor's mansion and maintained down there. So if you love history, there's so much in Liberty to look at and understand and do. When I started working down there with them on their city manager recruitment, I think the council came in and really wanted to take the city in a very positive direction. And they've really made the key moves at their leadership positions to do that by bringing in their new city manager, by having Rick there. Council has maintained that cohesiveness. And when we look at recruitment, it's very similar whether we're recruiting for a city manager or a chief of police or an assistant chief of police, in the sense that if you have stability in a community that is progressive and professional, you have pay that is commensurate with the position and the area, and then school system where if you have a family, you know that your kids are going to be well educated. Recruiting for this position is sort of getting that trifecta. We have all those things in place. Rick, I think if you can talk a little bit more about just how the community has really embraced what you're bringing to the table after, having maybe a police administration there for a while who wasn't as innovative, kind of how they responded to having this new model come in.
Yeah, like I said, the city's been great. The city council, the mayor, the citizens that I meet on the street they're all wonderful. They're very supportive. The comments I hear over and over and over again, like I was out the other day, we had a parade. I was out, walking around the parade, and and I get these comments all the time about, well, I've never seen the chief before, wow, I've never seen anybody out, our guys do a lot of small thing I had them do is like on building checks, when they do building checks at night, right? I make them leave a little card, right, that you were there. It's a small thing, but I get more comments from citizens about, wow, I'm glad that they're doing this. I get comments more and more about, wow, I've seen the officers a lot more than I used to, wow, it's really nice. I was in the park the other day and I saw them come through twice, and I get council members telling me this all the time. Wow, I see the officers a lot more. Man, I talked to that officer and he was so nice. And, I get that. Those are the comments I'm getting. And what we're stressing to our cops over and over and over again is that respectful and that being out there, letting them see you. Don't hide. The whole idea of being a patrolman is to be seen. Let citizens, wave, let them see you. Those are the comments I get more and more from the citizens. And they are very supportive. Michael can tell you more about, we've had a few, incidents with officers doing stupid stuff. But even when those things happen, we deal with them. We step up and we deal with them. We've had to fire a couple of people to kind of clean this up. But the citizens have stood behind us the whole way. They want us to succeed. They want a good police department. I tell my troops this all the time. As long as you're communicating with people, be out there, let them see you, talk to them, right? They'll support us. They will. And they want to support us. I remember talking, Michael, we were talking about this too, but when you come into a new agency, you can say, well, I'm going to fix this or this, but what it really comes down to is changing culture. So many times that's the issue, right? Liberty had kind of more of that us against the world mentality, hiding, and so I'm trying to break some of that down, empowering supervisors to go out and supervise, right? We can tell you all the horror stories about what it used to be like, but now we're trying to make our supervisors supervise, go out and make decisions. Chief does not have to decide everything. Chief has to deal with those things that you can't deal with. So that's where we've been working, a lot of the culture change, trying to get that. And we probably replaced most of our patrol division since I've been here. We've hired, I want to say 7 or 8 people we've hired since I've been here. And so, we're building, we're actually back to full strength with the exception of this position. Our patrol will be back full strength. So we're getting there.
Chief, can you tell us a little bit about what your vision for the police department is, and how does the assistant chief fit into that, and how they help shape the future?
Yeah. So, like you said, we have good bones here, right? I think that was one of the things I did like about Liberty. We have good bones. I think what I want to continue doing is, and it takes several years because I went through this in Kennedy. It does take a minute to change that culture and to get people thinking forward, right? Being professional, being courteous and respectful and all those kind of things. And you have to infuse that in the agency. A lot of that is from the top too, right? You got to set that example. I want to continue that, getting that to where we want to be. And you want to think you could do that overnight. You really can't. I'm sure you all have had the same experiences. It takes a minute to get some of those changes made. It's not necessarily what I want to do on technology or specific programs. It's really more about the culture. When I'm not here, they're still respected. When people talk about Liberty, it used to be, I get this comment a lot too. Oh, Liberty was a horrible place. Nobody wanted to be there. Now I get the comment about, well, I hear there's a lot of new good things going on over there. So that's kind of what we want to continue forward with. This person will have to help me set examples, right? And that I think that their leadership is that they're setting the example for everybody else how to do this. And so when I do go on, they can just slide into and continue on with that legacy in that way that the way that the agency is looked at, the way people, when they say the name, what do they think? When you said Liberty PD, it wasn't always, oh, that's a really neat place. My troops have been doing really well about going out and recruiting people they know to come work here. And so they're looking at this, hey, this is our chance to build, an agency that we want us to build. They've been out recruiting people, and that's how we've been able to fill our ranks. I think when your troops are out recruiting, that tells you something, right? That people are happy to be here. We're not the best paid, but for our area, we're paid well for the area. We're paid more than SO and Dayton down the street. I think we're a little bit more than them, but we do have to compete with some of the Houston area agencies as well. So, but that's where we're headed with it. And so the next person, I want them to be able to continue to build that legacy and of a respected agency, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and Michael covered a lot of this already. Great schools down there and a great community. Is there anything else if somebody's moving in from out of the area? You're close to Houston, but I guess you're probably far enough away that you don't have a lot of the Houston crime necessarily.
No, our crime rate is really low. It's almost strange. We have 1 or 2 burglaries a month, a couple thefts, almost no violent crime. The only violent crime you're going to really see is, family violence type of thing. Crime rate is really low here, surprisingly. But we are right on, 146 and 90. So there's a lot of traffic comes through here from the Beaumont area, from Louisiana, going to Houston on 90. That goes that way. 46 goes north toward Lufkin in that way. So we do have a lot of traffic through here. We have the crossroads. That's one of the reasons we're putting in the flock camera system track who's coming through Liberty. But crime rates are pretty low. Like I said, even our investigators, I have 3 of them. None of them are overwhelmed. When we do have something come up, they can spend the time on it. We do have some traffic issues, but it's really not too bad either. You can go, I would talk to our troops, so they'll work a 12-hour shift and, well, what'd you do last night? Well, I had 2 or 3 calls and, that's kind of it. So, yeah.
Yeah. And James, if I can jump in there a little bit, Chief Ashe also has a pretty good facility there. I don't know exactly how old your building is, but it's very modern and built out for an agency his size. You and I both know as you're kind of going around Texas, there are agencies who sometimes their facilities don't match what their needs are. But the other really cool thing about Liberty is they do invest in the infrastructure as far as buildings and things like that to make sure their staff can do the job.
Our building is right at 10 years old. I just had to change out the water heater. But other than that, no, the building's in really good shape. And there's enough room. I have, enough office spaces and stuff like that. Yeah, you're right. When they built it, they added space for the future. I have windows in my office, so it's kind of nice. I can actually have some sunlight. And I've worked in places where, your office is in a little cubby hole, So, but yeah. No, it is a good facility. I did forget to mention, we also have animal control under the PD. Their facility is behind us. I do have 2 animal control officers who work for us as well. That's one of those issues that we need to look down the future, what we're going to do with it. We're way past capacity in that building. Liberty, evidently, for some reason, everyone want to come here and dump their dogs off, right? A city of 9,000 people, I have 110, 120 dogs in that, that facility at any one time. That's a big, big project down the future.
I don't know anybody that's got extra capacity, so everybody is kind of running at max.
Yeah, and those guys, I swear, those my animal control guys are saints. I don't know what we pay them, but it's not near enough. Those guys are great. I don't know how they do it, but I'm glad they do.
Well, Michael, can you tell us a little bit about the salary and benefits for this position?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's posted at the salary range of $90,000 to $110,000, depending on your qualifications and experience. Those folks who are well qualified, that'll definitely be a good range for them. The city does offer TMRS retirement, 7% employee match at 2-to-1. And those of us from Texas know that TMRS is a really great program to be involved with. The other thing that I think is really important, and we've mentioned this a lot, is you're going to be able to work with a group of folks throughout the city that embrace teamwork and collaboration and really just want to focus on each individual department, making sure they're achieving their organizational objectives and really helping their community out.
That's very important. How would candidates get in touch with you if they had questions or if they're ready to apply? What do they do?
Yeah, you can send your resume and cover letter to applyliberty@clearcareerpro.com. You can log on to our LinkedIn page and click the Apply Now button there and get your resume and cover letter uploaded. Or as always, James, they can just visit our website at clearcareerpro.com, check out the position and apply through that link. I believe the position's also posted in several places like Texas Municipal League, TML for those of us in Texas and know what that is. We try to make it as easy as possible to get your information in. We're excited to get a lot of really great candidates for this position. We are honored to work with Rick and the City of Liberty and continue our relationship with them. So for us here at Clear Career Professionals, it's always been about having community impact. And most of us have served in government a long time. And so when we can look down and see how great Liberty is doing, we really are honored to be a part of that.
Definitely great. Chief, can you tell us if we missed anything? What else do prospective candidates need to know about the Liberty Police Department or coming to work for the City of Liberty?
I think you mentioned at the beginning, who would probably be good at this. And in my head, I'm thinking kind of the same way. You were maybe a lieutenant or a senior sergeant, maybe somewhere in a larger agency who's thinking, I want to make this jump, but I'm not going to be able to do it here. When I first became a chief, I only really became a chief because my chief at the time told me you really should do it, right? You don't know what doors will open. And so I tell other people that too. If you make this jump, you don't know where this is going to go. The idea is that they'll take over for me, right? You never know what doors will open once you make that jump. I do kind of encourage people who are interested in, moving up to consider taking that leap. It's, sometimes it's a leap of faith. It really is. But we're talking about, doors closed and doors open for a reason. Don't be afraid to do that. And the other thing I would say too, for people who are listening and who want to apply to it is, this is something I learned applying for a chief's job. Matter of fact, Michael actually called me one day. I think the first time we talked was I'd applied for a chief's job down near Galveston, and he called me to set up an interview and then called me back later and said, "Oh, never mind," because they hired their interim chief. But don't be afraid to apply, even if, hey, I don't meet everything on there, but go ahead and apply. You never know. Let us look at you. If you looked at me originally on paper maybe years ago, I don't know, but once you get the experience, right? So apply. All we can do is say no. How many chief's jobs, do you apply for before you get one, right? Multiples. So you just never know. But yeah, feel free. If they want to do it, tell them to apply and let's look.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't know how many conversations I've had with, and it's usually mid-sized police department lieutenants that have a fairly competitive field at their department to get the next promotion, but they're worried about stepping out, and it's usually for a chief role. So this sounds like a great opportunity for one of those men or women to come in and get the things they may feel like they're missing, and maybe they're not even missing them, but they just feel like it. So I think it's a great opportunity for somebody.
When this topic first came up, I remember talking to my mayor and city manager and thinking, man, what a great idea. The more I thought about it, the more I liked this, because we can bring in somebody who maybe not is ready to be chief today, right? But with some training and some time and mentoring, they'll be ready to be chief in a few years. No, I think it's great. I know when growing up through Temple, I was lieutenant, and, we had, I think, 5 or 6 lieutenants at the time, a couple deputy chiefs. And again, it's real competitive trying to get to that top. Sometimes you just look at the writing on the wall and say, I've hit my ceiling, and so, yeah, this is, when we got talking about that, what a great opportunity. There's these people in my head I can envision out there that are thinking exactly that same way. So, yeah.
Michael, before we wrap up, is there anything that you want to leave us with?
No, we always have a lot of great recruitments going on here at Clear Career Professionals. I think we have 8 or 9 positions currently posted. If you're catching this podcast and maybe aren't in the law enforcement world, but maybe you're in finance or wanting to be a city manager, we have a number of positions posted right now. And I want to also just say thanks again to Rick and Chief Ashe, and make sure that we are working hard to get really great candidates for their process, and look forward to continuing this process with you, Chief.
Yeah, I appreciate all your help. It's been really good, good process so far. And I guess you mentioned Mr. Kendrick. I do want to shout out that, man, he's doing a great job. And, he's been so supportive of me and so helpful. And, every time I say something to him, he just says, well, Chief, I trust you. I'm glad of that support, that he gives me.
Thank you, Chief, for joining us today. And thank you and the City of Liberty for entrusting Clear with this recruitment. Michael, thanks for joining us as always. Thank you to the listeners for being with us today. We'd like you to subscribe and follow the podcast and Clear Career Professionals on LinkedIn for this and other amazing opportunities. And we will catch you next time.